We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you is Wednesday, September 24th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Julian.
Happy Wednesday.
Good to have you, and also Moonji's with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. It's Wednesday, the middle of the week, and as we push through the midweek slump, some grab another cup of coffee, some scroll endlessly on their phones, and others look for the latest trends online to keep things interesting. And speaking of trends, it feels like every once in a while there's a new type of person that Gen Z and millennials latch onto and make go viral. And these trends don't just stay online either. They spill over into real conversations, dating culture, and even workplace chatter. So here's the question for today. So have you heard about this idea of performative males? Did you?
Yeah, I've heard of this performative males, which we refer to men who construct their personalities, preferences, and behaviors primarily to attract women's attention. A typical example might be someone, reading a philosophy books while listening to music with traditional wired earbuds and sipping a matcha. Filming this kind of curated aesthetic and sharing it on a social media has once sparked a major trend, especially on a global platform, TikTok.
Right, so what about you, Julian? Are you familiar with this term?
I would say I'm relatively familiar with this terminology. I've seen men dressed in this aesthetic, so I don't know, but for context, a performative male is basically a man who pretends to like certain things that are often considered girly just to get attention from girls. So, for example, if a man doesn't genuinely enjoy matcha or labubus, but buys them because they're trendy and popular with girls, that is the quintessential performative male. So the goal is to basically look opposite of what a toxic male would be. Many social media videos showcase this performative male aesthetic, which usually includes baggy pants, cropped t-shirts, and a tote bag. But just because someone fits that aesthetic, you can't fully tell if that's their genuine sense of style or if it's really just performative. But I would say you can usually tell by having a conversation with them and see if they have a genuine interest on these trends and issues on feminism.
So I've also seen these competitions pop up on a lot of different college campuses, from UPenn to UNC, and online clips show contestants showing off books by women like Jane Austen, sporting tote bags and wired earbuds like Moonji and Julian mentioned, even sipping matcha lattes, and they're all part of this kind of performative male aesthetic. So to see just how over the top these trends have become, let's take a look at the screen to learn more. Every so often, a certain type of person takes the internet by storm. We've seen everything from the pick-me girl to the mob wife aesthetic to the so-called hot rodent boyfriend, and now the internet spotlight has shifted to a brand new figure. He's known as the performative male, a guy defined by his carefully curated display of sensitivity, intellect, and so-called wokeness, which often comes across as more show than substance. Today on News Generation, we dig into why this persona has gone viral and what it might be saying about the way society views masculinity. As we just saw in the video, these competitions really highlight the extremes of the performative male trend, from carefully curated outfits to dramatic displays of wokeness and sensitivity. It's a world where every gesture, every accessory, even the choice of books or drinks becomes a way to signal a certain image to others. And as we mentioned at the start of the show, a performing male is someone who takes the things typically associated with women and queer culture and turns them into a kind of aesthetic more for show and social approval than genuine interest. So this makes me wonder, are there some traits of performing males that you actually enjoy or find interesting? Like, we mentioned matcha lattes or books by women writers. Or to put it more directly, would you ever consider yourself a performing male, wouldn't you?
I say no because I'm a book hater. If you ever catch me reading one, call the authorities because something has clearly gone wrong. And anyways, but I do love matcha, and I often wear wired earbuds just because simply I always forget to charge my Bluetooth ones. So probably one day, if I hold a book, anything but philosophy, at the cafe, sipping a matcha with my wired earbuds, probably could be a performative man. But at this point, I don't think I could call myself a performative male. Yeah.
So obviously, this is not just like bad traits as well.
No.
We're talking about some interesting traits like matcha lattes.
Yeah.
You're technically halfway there. So
Yeah, I think I'm more than halfway, but if I could ever be, because I'm a very famous book hater among my friends, so probably I am just not born to be, but I will try one day if you find me reading a book that I'm being a performative male that day.
So we're talking about more of the cliche kind of stereotypes of the
Yeah.
trend. But what about you, Julian?
This is a very good question, but to an extent, I do feel like we all are performative in a way because I think we all just want to fit society's standards. And maybe I do fit the aesthetic a little bit because I do love, just like what Munju said, I love drinking matcha lattes and I do like to carry a tote bag around because it's convenient, especially when I live back home in LA. But in general, no, I wouldn't really necessarily consider myself to be a performative male. And my reason is mainly because I don't feel like I'm acting disingenuous to myself or changing my core values just to get other people's attentions. I do like to experiment to try new things to see what I'm interested in, but I think that's just part of being in our 20s, experimenting with our fashions, taste, and figuring out who we are and what we like. So I guess that's not exactly what performative is.
So I mean, there are certain traits associated with being a performing male that's not too bad. So what are some things that you think is more positive?
Something positive about performative males, I think that they actually really care about like their image and their fashion, and I think that is something that's good because you want to present yourself in a more, I guess, nice way, and I think that's just something that is important to try to. Yeah.
So it seems like this trend has taken over college campuses in the US and social media feeds everywhere. So just how widespread has this trend really become, Julian?
Yeah, so it's become fairly widespread on social media. So for example, TikTok males tagged hashtag performative males have racked over 28 million views, while those tagged hashtag performative have surpassed 149 million views. So on TikTok and Instagram, a trend has emerged where performative males compete over those who have the most softer taste in music or who owns the most rarest tote bag. This aesthetic can also be spotted offline, especially on college campuses and in more urban, trendier neighborhoods. So for example, in Seattle's Capitol Hill, a well-known hip neighborhood, there's even a competition to see who can pull off the performative male look best, a take on the most popular US trend of hosting celebrity lookalike contests, which we will discuss later.
So it's interesting how these trends turn everyday things like music taste and accessories into points of competitions. Like who knew tote bags and playlists would be part of viral competitions? So since accessories play such a big role in this trend and businesses are quick to capitalize on it, how are fashion and lifestyle companies responding to the performative male phenomenon, Munju?
They are definitely responding to this trend. The fashion and publishing industries have increasingly launched, products targeting the performative male archetype, which are with the traits that we've discussed earlier. To complement this image of performative male, as you can see from our screen here, these brands kind of promote loose-fitting shorts or like oversized shirts or jackets, and minimalist, eco-friendly tote bags. And advertisements also feature sociology books, especially those on feminism ones, and analog hobby items like film cameras, which are all curated to appeal to performative males.
So what I personally find so amusing about this trend is that the props themselves aren't really bad. Like obviously philosophy books or feminist literature are things I feel like more men should read, and matcha is actually, we both mentioned, you guys are both matcha fans as well. So in a way, more power to them for bringing those into the spotlight. But if you were to, Munju, to ever enter a performative male competition, which of these props would you, bring to these competitions?
I think I would bring eco-friendly tote bag, because I used to bring my bags with all the time, and I do have some of eco-friendly tote bags, so I think it's the easiest one that I could bring anytime. And I think that that kind of makes what a performative male look as a performative male, because males tend not to bring bags with them often, and so I think that's how performative males are not defined, but kind of majorly defined. So I think I'll bring the bag.
So a lot of men are going all out for these competitions, and to get a closer look at this viral trend, we'll be speaking with someone who actually has first-hand experience. A young person actually attended a performative male competition in the US and captured it on video. And that conversation is going to take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out Channel Arirang News. Click Posts cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Hannah, a young resident of Seattle who filmed a performative male competition that gained a lot of attention online. So hi Hannah, thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So how common are men in the US who you would describe as performative males, and what do you personally think of them and this trend?
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty funny because I feel like nowadays you can't even walk into a city coffee shop without spotting at least one performative male. They either have their tote bags, as you were mentioning, their matcha lattes, maybe a Sally Rooney novel poking out of their pocket. Even at the performative male contest, people were carrying around vinyl records under their arm for no reason. So it's definitely not rare. It's practically what is a subculture now. I would say from Seattle to New York to LA and pretty much every city in between, there's versions of these performative males everywhere. And the thing is I don't necessarily think it's bad, you know, like sometimes it's pretty funny and it's pretty sweet because they're trying to present themselves as very thoughtful, feminist, and emotionally intelligent. But then sometimes you're also like, okay, like, are you actually like this? Or is this kind of just a costume and a bit for you? And so I think that's kind of where this meme kicks in. It's definitely like a real world version of Instagram aesthetics. And at the end of the day, it's just pretty entertaining. And it's really telling of where is at, and it gives us something all to laugh about.
Great. So I am curious, but what was your experience like at the performative male contest, and what were the contestants and the vibe like?
Yeah, for sure. So being there was honestly kind of surreal. It's probably like one of the biggest events I've been to in Seattle, with just hundreds of people all gathered in Cal Anderson Park. And the energy was pretty wild. It was organized by @stuff by Gwen on Instagram, and everyone was just fully leaning into the bit. So again, tote bags everywhere, vinyl records. I think I counted like 50 different Labubu dolls. So they were definitely there as well. But the energy was really similar to Washington Square Park in New York, where it's just kind of chaotic and everyone is there to like have fun and have a good time. So the competition actually had two different rounds. First, guys were judged on their outfit and their vibe, and then we all clapped for them. And then the guys who had the most claps moved on to the second round, which was a trivia round. And so we were asking questions like, name 5 women who inspired you, or who is your famous female artist? We even asked some guys when women got the right to vote, and a lot of them surprisingly didn't know. And so they were booted out, which was pretty funny because that's kind of the entire point of being a performative male. But I think that's what just made it really funny. You know, the whole room was kind of in on the joke, and it was chaotic, but definitely in a good way, where everyone was cheering, laughing, and overall just having a good time.
Yeah, I see. It's very interesting to find out that there's a performative male contest. And our last but not least question for you today is, why do you think the performative male trend has become popular, and do you see it continuing this in the future?
Yeah. So I think the idea of a performative male works really well because it's basically just peak internet culture playing out in real life. You know, nowadays everyone is addicted to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and you see the same trends permeate through all these different platforms. And so social media rewards irony and aesthetics, and performative males are basically the 2025 version of a walking meme of that. And so the whole vibe is, you know, I'm sensitive, I'm cultured, I read women authors, but it's kind of delivered with just enough energy that it's almost a parody. And I think that's what really resonates with people, because it's funny, it's charming. And then, you know, at the same time, like for the future, I don't really see the idea of a performative male disappearing. I think if anything, it's just going to evolve into a new, like funnier and also weirder form. And so I think just give it a year, we might see performative males at hot yoga with the next Labubu doll clipped onto their mats, drinking mushroom coffee and posting about it on TikTok. And so I think overall, Gen Z really just thrives on irony and niche aesthetics. And so it's basically become its own genre of a guy, and we're all just kind of sitting back watching the lore build now.
I think you brought up a really good point, because I think for me personally too, like seeing a guy maybe that I could talk about Sally Rooney books with would be such a plus for me, and also a guy that's, you know, more woke and kind of feminist. I feel like these are now considered attractive qualities. So as long as it's not like misleading or inauthentic, I feel like this is a really fun trend. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So we just heard from a young person in the US who told us what it's like to attend a performative male contest. She shared her thoughts on why the trend has become so popular and even gave us a glimpse into the kinds of traits and aesthetics that define these performative males. We've also talked about how popular performative males have become, what the competitions are like, and how the trend has spread online. But the bigger question remains, why has the performative male phenomenon taken off in the first place, Munju?
Yeah, I mean, there might be a lot of reasons, but one possible reason here is that today, individual taste has become more important than, societal expectations. In the past, many men feared being seen as not as masculine enough, an image now associated with performative males that we've discussed earlier. But recently trends like Egennam or performative male has been gaining the popularity, while Egennam refers to men who are naturally gentle and soft-hearted, and performative males consciously shape themselves to align with women's preferences. These kind of shifts suggest that traditional gender roles have lost their grip, whereas strong, assertive, and dominant men were once considered ideal to women. More women today are drawn to men who understand themselves, respect themselves, and warm, harmless, and emotionally attuned.
So it seems like the popularity of performing males suggests that women's preference for understanding, respectful partners are reshaping what's considered an ideal romantic partner. So traditionally, men were often judged by their career success or income. So do you think performing males represent a shift in how masculinity itself is expressed, Julian?
Yeah, I would say I think so. But there are claims that performative male trend is seen as a product of economic recession. As the era where jobs guarantee masculinity comes to an end and youth male unemployment raises, some men seek recognition not just through economic power but through image. This new form of masculinity is what performative male represents. So, for example, in the US, the economic downturn has affected young men so strongly that it's even led to the term he-cession, which is a portmanteau of the words he and recession, which serves as evidence of this trend.
I fully agree. And this also reminds me of how there's a growing awareness around toxic masculinity, which is really significant. And today, many women have also proven themselves fully capable of taking on the so-called provider roles, which typically men, I feel like, have taken on more. And it means that traits like sensitivity, respect, and openness are being recognized as not just as valuable, if not more, in men. So it makes me wonder, in this kind of changing times, like, what do you mean like to be a man these days? Or how would you just define masculinity?
I guess when it comes to define masculinity, I think it's just up to the individual. I think everybody can have some kind of level of masculinity and they have their own way of defining what that means to them.
I think things are really changing. I think that kind of reminds me of like America Ferrer's iconic monologue in the movie Barbie, which captured the impossible kind of expectations of being a woman. It says she says, you're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the time. You have to be a career woman, but also be looking out for other people. You're also supposed to be pretty for men, but also not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women because you're supposed to be part of the sisterhood. So there's changing, views on femininity and what it means to be masculine as well. So it's quite fascinating to think of that as well. And while that speech is about women, it also, as I said, raises this is a very important point. And that's why it's important to also rethink about what masculinity means as well, which this trend does. And so it's also fascinating to see this shift from career success and final status to image, style, and social signaling for men. And trends like performing males aren't just about aesthetics, they reflect deeper social and economic changes, showing how young men are adapting to a world where traditional markers of masculinity are no longer the only way to gain recognition. So this got us wondering, so what do people actually prefer when it comes to masculinity today? So to find out, we turned to our Arirang News YouTube community and asked them a simple question: which do you prefer, performative males or more traditionally masculine men? 52% of respondents said they are drawn to the performative male, the stylish, trend-conscious type, while 31% prefer the traditional masculine male. The remaining 17% selected other types. So it's interesting to see that more than half of the people surveyed are drawn to the performative male. It shows how much modern ideals of masculinity are evolving. So it looks like traditional masculinity is no longer the only ideal. Style, sensitivity, and social awareness are also increasingly valued. So while performative males do show traits that seem woke, appearing socially aware, progressive, and sensitive to issues like feminism, there's also some criticism of this trend. So can you explain what those critiques are, Julian?
Yeah, so there are a lot of critiques and criticisms on why men do this. Some people say that performative males do not genuinely embody gentleness, rather they adopt it simply to gain popularity with women. For example, a performative male might not truly hold those beliefs, yet carry books with feminist slogans purely just for display. And there's a chance that if you were to discuss these topics with them, they wouldn't have any idea how to respond, just like how we discussed in our interview, adding to the frustration that people have with performative males.
So this really highlights the performative side of the trend, image over substance. So it's an unfortunate reminder that just because someone appears to be social aware, it doesn't necessarily mean that their convictions match. So it's a problem because some people may assume performant individuals genuinely share their displayed values, which can lead to misplaced trust or expectations. And performative acts may also end up reinforcing the very stereotypes they're supposed to counter. So, Moonju, do you have anything to add to this? Have you seen other criticism people have about this trend?
Yeah, just briefly, appealing is important, but the authenticity is equally crucial. So, and I think it's very important to remember that true love can only be fulfilled through the sharing of genuine traits.
So this is kind of a personal question. So in the polls, the polls mentioned traditional masculine people, and also our topic for today, performing males. Which would you categorize if you had to categorize yourself into one of those two?
If I had to answer between the two, I would say performative males, because as you can see from my image, I'm not that kind of masculine people or person. So I think I'd have to say performative male, but without the book part.
But then there's positive traits associated with
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Are there specific traits with performing males that are more positive that you would associate yourself with?
I don't know, because I like matcha again here. I like matcha, and I think I'm more of I think I have to call myself performative male because I'm not that dominant or aggressive or I'm not leading person. So I think, and then there are a lot of positive parts in the performative male. So I think it's not a bad thing to be a performative male. It's just a matter of how you treat those and how you think those performative males are. So yeah, I think I have to call myself more close to performative males.
So while the performing male trend has sparked plenty of debates, not all negative as we've mentioned, on the positive side, it promotes traits like sensitivity, thoughtfulness, and awareness of social issues, qualities that challenge traditional stereotypes of masculinity and encourage men to be more empathetic and considerate. At the same time, there's a risk of these traits being showcased superficially, more for show than genuine conviction. But whether playful or performant, the takeaway isn't just about tote bags or matcha lattes, but about recognizing that social awareness about the importance of feminism, inclusivity, and equality are increasingly valued traits in today's world. And this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Big thanks to Julian
Thank you for having me today.
coming in, and also Moonju.
My pleasure.
And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.